started.
All right. Barry, do you have those documents up and available to share?
I don't, but I will sneak off and get them pulled up. So, no, I wasn't prepared to do that. Lane's using my document sharer.
right,
So,
right.
okay, let me
I can share
let me
if you
go
want.
down a second here. Okay, okay, yeah, no, that would be great. Let me get back open and I'll put on share screen. Yeah. I think I've got share screen sharing enabled. Let me just check it.
Okay. Let's see. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's enabled. You should be able to.
Okay. So let me. Very sorry. Excuse me. This is kind of small, but I don't know how to enlarge it. But this is the agenda Lane sent out. Can you
Okay.
guys read it at all?
No, it's pretty small. If I can.
How do you enlarge Gmail?
You should be able to just hit a plus sign.
Is it up
on your screen?
In your address bar on the right-hand side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the way over, up higher?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Here?
Next line up. Next line
So
up.
the plus sign.
Go
Sorry.
up to the Mail Google.
I got a menu bar in my way, I think.
Oh, you can't go up a little bit higher?
Let's see. Well, that's kind of weak. Yeah. Oh, that's gone now. Say where now, Chris?
If you go all the way over to the right.
Oh, way over here?
Yeah. Yeah. Try that one right there. See if that gives you the option.
Doesn't look like it.
What about the bar above that in the address bar above?
Here?
Yeah.
Oh, up here?
Right
this thing?
right there.
What's that? Zoom. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. Thanks, Chris. So I can go a little more, maybe. Maybe not. Okay. So she says here. Oh, yeah.
That's much
So
better.
you can actually read that now?
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So, report on recent discussions with the RCO, Ted Morse from Birch Bay and Rod Lamb from Parks and Rec. The only one I was involved in was Rod. So maybe Mary, do you want to recap the others?
Yeah. The discussion with I was not in on the discussion with RCO. That was lame. But I was in on the discussion with Ted Morse from Birch Bay. And that was a very, very helpful discussion. We asked him directly about how necessary, he thought that a real detailed site analysis would be. And in his experience, he had said that usually all you need to do is just do a verbal kind of a thing rather than developing all these checklists and stuff like that, Chris. Just to do like a verbal thing, like why this site, these are the pros of this site, these are the cons of this site. And like why, and then just, why the site that we selected appears to be the best. And he also said that the person that that is our grant manager. And this I found really helpful. She is new. So, we've been thinking that she was like an old hand at this, but she is new and sort of feeling her way around this job as well.
Okay.
So the person that is her supervisor used to be in charge of this area. So that's another little bit of stuff that was kind of a good thing to learn.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me see if I have any more notes. No.
Well, talking to Lane, reiterating what you just said, Mary, it sounds like it's going to be a lot easier than what we originally thought. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yes, I am too. I was pretty happy to hear that. And I'm trying to just think of anything else off the top of my head. Oh, I think those were my key takeaways, Ed. And I saw him, he came over to the Reef Festival and visited with Lane and I for a few minutes, at our little table at the festival. And so he said some stuff to be cognizant of is putting in deadlines when you're doing your request for proposals. And he did say it's a good idea to have to spell out consequences if our contractors don't meet deadlines. So
Right. Okay.
that was
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
thing that he was. And I think Rod also said the same thing.
Yes, and I did see that Lane has that in the RFQ.
Yeah.
guys-
And then do you want to cover? I hear you good, Dave.
Okay, there's some breaking up I'm hearing, but
Do you want to summarize the visit with Rod?
yeah, I can try just from memory. I don't have my notes with me, but the one thing that Rod was, I would say, I would characterize it as you did, Mary. It was very, very productive, helpful meeting. And he had lots of examples of RFQs and advertisements in the Bellingham Herald that he was going to send us examples of, and even contracts or whatever, like statement of work or professional services agreement, I guess, that we would draft once we select a contractor. I don't know if Lane has received anything yet. Mary, do you?
I haven't looked at the link to PDF of draft RFQ for the for engineering and outreach consultants.
Yeah, I looked at those. Those were Lane's draft
Those are
RFQ.
the drafts. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, I don't know if we've received anything from Rod yet.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, I think some of the things that Rod said, like I asked him again about the site and stuff like that, because that's the thing that's always been the real bugaboo for me is like, we're going to be doing all this work here, and we still don't have like a formal written agreement with the Park and Rec Department. But he reiterated that he feels that Bennett and the Park Commission, they are on board with this project, and that it's one of those things that's like a gold star type project for them. They really, it would be a desired outcome. So
Yeah, yeah.
he'd reiterate that. That's something that I just don't want to go through all of this and at the very end find out that, well, the county's not really behind us.
Right, right. And I think, Chris, it's important that he felt that we were doing things very well, like doing things right. So I think we continue to have their support, and they have a lot to help us with. But he said we're on the right track, and yeah, it sounded good.
Yeah, and he offered to provide sample ads for doing the advertising for the or request for proposals to publicize them. He also gives the name of another engineering firm, and when he mentioned that name, I go, oh yeah, that's the one that has done all the stuff for the Easton Preserve. It's called Anchor QF.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a big firm similar to KPFF, and he said that they probably would be very interested in in bidding on our contract, and so that we should definitely contact them with a heads up. And then there's another firm called, I think it's Blue Coast. Was
Something
that
like
what the name of that one was? Yeah,
Yeah,
Blue Coast Engineering. And I think that they might have been a subcontractor for Anchor Q&A. It's Q&A, Q&F, or something like that on
right.
the Aiden project. So I think they might have been doing some of the final engineering on the site for the restoration stuff that Aston did. I sort of remember that. I would need to look at some of the financial statements from Heritage Trust and just see the names of the contractors, but I think that might have been the other one. So, and I think they might sub on that, the proposal, but he had the name of a woman who worked for that firm. So that he was going to forward that to Lane.
Right.
Or just, and I think he said he was going to contact her and have her get in contact with Lane. So,
okay. Yeah.
So
maybe we should talk about. Did you have more on that, Mary?
Nope.
I was thinking we could segue into this, the plans to conduct a site assessment for other dock locations, and that's obviously linked in with the recent Ed Scott email. I just wanted to review again what we discussed in our meeting, Mary, last meeting was, so Chris, I think, and we can go back and reread the grant, but the grant is pretty specific about developing, doing this feasibility study at the site of the the beach access, right? The Parks and Rec access, because
Mhm.
we went through okay, let's call it a cursory review of potential sites, but we did evaluate a number of sites, and we came around and selected that one and wrote the grant around that, and we got the grant. So now, and we did hear some input from Ed Scott at the time that he was not a super proponent of it, but wasn't really gonna be a big blocker because he thought it would never happen in his lifetime, I think he said. Uh, but
Mhm.
now there seems to be a very strong pushback against this site. And I guess my perspective on this is, we have this grant money. It will pay for an engineering design concept. Uh, it's based on this particular site. And we don't want to lose the opportunity to learn and understand what the cost of such a project would be, even if we have to move to a different site. Now, granted, that changes a lot of things, right? But I was trying to think in my mind, Mary, how best we could respond to Ed and his neighbors. Um, Not that we're, as Lane has said numerous times, this is a feasibility study. There's no plan to do any building whatsoever. Uh, maybe we
Mhm.
maybe we just need to clarify how we got to where we are with the grant, and that we want to take advantage of the grant funding to do this study, but nothing is cast in concrete. And we are going to do uh, a further assessment of different sites. But the further assessment of different sites, that's where I start wondering, and maybe we're at a little bit of a disadvantage if our grant manager is new, but uh, I think we need to review the grant uh, deliverables and see, like, if we start diverting into all kinds of site assessments, are we running afoul of the grant, right? Or do we just notify them that there's changes, or, right? That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. uh,
Yeah, I believe that, this was this is a site-specific grant.
yeah,
I think that, so because of that, I don't think we can waste, like, commit monetary resources to do a out-of-house professional site survey. That's
right,
why
yeah,
we're hoping we can do that on our own and not have to hire some consultant to do that.
that makes sense,
Um,
right? Yeah, yeah.
so that's sort of the way that I have been looking at it. And last meeting, when we talked about this, and, like, Chris, I think that would be the way to run this as a committee. But I think that what the Park and Rec Department was asking for is just like what I was saying earlier. These are the places that we looked at. These are the pros of this site. These are the cons of this site. And do that for anyone that may be potentially feasible. And the huge thing is the potentially feasible. And
Yeah.
and because a lot of these sites are on private property,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that, that, and and that is like that's like one huge giant stumbling block.
Right, right.
If we had a property owner that was willing to consider, selling or making a donation for the good of the community, of access, that would go a long way to changing this site. But at this this point in time, what we've looked at so far, you know, we looked at the protection from weather. We've looked at, you know, is it publicly accessible or on private land? We have had conversations with landowners. The only people that really have had a conversation with that is the landowner is Park and Rec, was with the county.
Yeah,
So, and so there are, you know, there are some things that I think that doing this site survey that Chris has been offered to chair is a good thing. But as far as paying for like archaeological studies at those sites and stuff like that, we do not have funding for that.
Right. So Mary, what's your thoughts on, do we proceed with doing our cultural resources survey and eelgrass surveys on the current site? I think we do, right? Because that's what the grant is
I
designed.
think we do. I think we do.
Yeah,
But I think also part of what the grant is designed for is also to do that community outreach.
right.
And
Yeah.
I feel that it might be real good to have a meeting with all of those property owners
Right.
and listen to what they have to say. Why, you know, why they're opposed, I believe that I do not know if Ed has spoken to all those people or
Yeah.
if he just took a whole list of names and said, these are the property owners here, and I think they will all oppose and stuff like that. I see Harmony's there. Harmony's property on the other side of the ferry dock.
Right.
You know, there are people that are listed there that are not adjoining property owners.
Yeah.
And I would like, I think it would behoove us to set up a meeting. And the other thing is, it might be good to, you know, if include those people on the alternative site survey.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
if you want us to build it here, can you help us find an alternative site
Yeah. Right.
and,
No,
and
that's
be part of that survey? Because I think it would be good to open the door to include them.
Yeah, I
know?
agree, Mary. That's a good idea. And it would give us an opportunity to explain to them why we want to proceed with the grant study on the current site, because that's what the
Yeah.
grant is approved for, right? Not that we're going to necessarily
Mhm.
build there, but we're going to learn an awful lot in the process. So yeah, no, I think that's a great idea to set up a meeting with those homeowners. And then loop them in.
So, question for you guys. So, if I understand
Yeah.
grant right, it's I understand Ed doesn't want us to spend money as frivolously, but this grant money is designed just for that. If we don't do it for that, then it just goes back to the state or whatever, right?
I think so, Chris.
Mhm.
That was my
Or we
concern.
just, yeah, we just turn it, back in, because if we go to another site, we will not be able to do our deliverables.
So
We
this is the hoop
check that out.
this is what they're making us jump through. This is what they want. So we don't have any say over it. It's the only option.
That's what we came up with after our initial stuff. We thought that would be the best site,
No, I
that the
mean,
most feasible site.
Gary, I mean, it's the only option with the grant and the way that we have approached it, that's what the state wants us to use it for.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
one of the things that Ed was asking for, he was, in his initial communication with us a year ago, saying, well, we do know that you have yield gas there, that there is cultural resources there, that there is this, that you need to permission of the Lummi Nation. And he just had all these big stumbling blocks that he had put up. And then he kind of said, so this will go away like all these other pie in the sky dreams or something.
Oh,
I think that was, I can look up his initial letter, and I can look up my comment that I sent to him, and he never replied back to me after the comment that I sent to him, saying that, yeah, we are aware of these and that we do hope to engage with people. And I kind of, so, because his initial letter was not like this one. This one is more belligerent, like, I'm, nothing has come from this, but dire pushback from neighboring property owners. And I don't know how much talking to neighboring property owners is done. I know that Dawn Dietrich has so far been very supportive of the dock. And she was listed as one of the people that was in that list.
oh, okay.
So, I don't know if he just went and did this, said these people, blah, da, 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 are going to be over my dead body kind of a thing. So I would hope that we can try to positively engage them and really listen to what they have to say. And I think that might be our first community outreach thing that we should do, is just with that group of property owners and let them express their concerns.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mary. And I remember we discussed these issues, right? Like people that go down to the beach and wander over to Ed's property, and then they also wander over to what is it, Jaeger's cabins and things, and how a pier might become a focal point to prevent that, So I think it's important that Ed and the other neighbors, if they are linked into this, at least appreciate that we took their input seriously. And I think, as you said, Mary, he probably thought, well, this will never happen. And then when the grant got awarded, he's like, oh, crap, maybe this is going to move forward. So I think a meeting would be great, because it would give us an opportunity to at least clarify, as Chris said, he doesn't want us to waste money, but we don't want to just let this money go away. I mean, we can learn what a pier, a 300-foot long pier and elevatable dock costs, that kind of design. I mean, that's not useless information, even if we have to move to Ligo Bay or something, right? I mean, and as you said, Mary, as we progress and we have more public outreach and the concept becomes more clear, maybe, some of the resistance will go away as well. It's just hard to know. So
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole point.
Yeah,
of the grant.
no, and I think that if it's just pier and people, if it's just a pier and you'll no longer have steps down onto the beach, that might be a good negotiating point for the homeowners, and just say, okay, well, that would cut some of that close access there.
Right.
And And, I know Jaegers was concerned about noise
Mhm.
and light pollution and stuff like that. And I think that, in our conversations, we have brainstormed things like, well, how could we reduce light pollution for the neighbors? We
Yes.
could put, shields, downward shield on any kind of lighting,
Yep.
and shortward shields, that within Coast Guard regulations, as far as like, if it has to be 360 light, but if it needs to be a 360 light, then it has to be a 360-degree light. But if it just has to be out to like the visible danger zone or something, then, so we can do our best to address the concerns, because I think we've talked about that in our discussions of design possibilities, and we talked about to make it not like a real bangy kind of a dock that would, every time somebody walks down a ramp, it would go clink, 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 clink.
Right. Yep.
And we have talked about it not being an overnight moorage site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think we just need to make all of these things clear. And I guess we could propose in a response to Ed a meeting, and then we could craft up some presentations, some bullet points to address all these things. Right, because we have talked about it, and we just need to make it clear to them. And then, very importantly, to make clear to them that we want to use this grant money to complete this study. Whether or not it's actually built there is an open question. And we are going to do a alternative site survey. And by the way, we can use your help.
We could use your help. You've done the island for a long time. You were in the Coast Guard, Ed Scott. You know what it takes to make a safe harbor or a good harbor. Like let's see where else we can make a reasonable site. And I think it would be great to invite them to be included. And there are people on the island that we know there are people on the island like no dock over my dead body, or they just don't want to make something to make the island more accessible to the public.
And that the message there we need to convey is that the additional accessibility is extremely limited, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about what, maybe 4 30-foot boats with 4 people on them every 3 hours, as opposed to a 36-car ferry with full of cars. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
I find that argument kind of weak, or that concern, but I know it's real, and so we need to address it. Maybe we address it with the numbers,
yeah, but I think it's really important that we have our things, but I think it's real important that we listen and make sure that their feedback and concerns are included in all of our records. So I think it's real important that we have a good record kept of any meetings that we have with them, because that's part of the community feedback that we need to have.
Yeah, that's right.
We just don't go.
I'm sorry, you broke up, Mary.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was gonna say along those lines that there's another note on this response was to also Steve Coughlin about the boat launch. And
Mhm.
and admittedly, the Parks and Rec site is not amenable to a boat launch. But
Mm-mm.
as we know, what we've learned is that a boat launch was part of the comprehensive Parks and Recreation study, or whatever they call it, open space plan, right? So
Mhm.
so uh, I'm sure he's not aware of that. I'm guessing he's not aware of that because he hasn't dug into the kind of detail we have. So, and that's certainly an opportunity to consider when we talk about alternative sites. But these are all very good points these guys are bringing up. I think we just need to give them the
Mhm.
context of how we arrived at where we are with this grant, and that proceeding with the grant isn't really in conflict to their requests or concerns. It's merely you know, uh, to learn more about the feasibility and cost of a project like this. Uh, I guess that's kind of my perspective.
Yeah, ultimately, it's a first step to determine whether it's not even a possibility. Is it even
Right,
feasible at all? And it has to be done no matter what.
right. I mean, what is this project cost? Is it 2 million, 5 million, 10 million? Right? At least we'd have some concept after this grant is completed to, at least ballpark this thing.
And
What do you,
I think,
what's your thoughts on that, Chris? I mean, this is kind of where I'm coming from, more from, I guess, more from an engineering point of view.
The
Right?
bottom line is it's a feasibility study. It's going to tell us whether it's even feasible. So this doesn't mean anything's moving forward necessarily. Now, obviously, our hope is that it will move forward after this if they say
Yeah.
yes, it's feasible, right? Not to be morbid, but the bottom line is most of these folks that he's talked about are not going to be around in the time frame that this thing would ever be built, at least according to those who have done these things before. Terry particularly, who's
Yeah.
been everything that she told us about this process. So it's a long haul. I mean, this is so early in it, and this is just the first feasibility. So it's that if the money isn't spent, this goes back to the state, granted, but it's the first step in us working towards any type of public dock here. And the state,
Exactly.
they're telling us what to do. So this is what we got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That's a very good point. Yeah.
yeah, I think that setting the context, I also think that if we keep having this circular argument of, I think we should build a dock here, I don't want us to build a dock here, stop talking about it. And then 3 years later, someone says, hey, you know what, really, we should build a dock. Why don't we build it there? I don't want a dock here, let's stop talking about it. And that's a cycle that we've been in for, well, apparently since 1985. And we're trying
Right.
to stop that cycle. We're trying to say, listen, get an answer. We'll not
Yeah.
only get an answer, but is it feasible? We're going to do the community outreach and in essence have all the feedback from the community about, and what do you think about having a dock? Specifically there, but it's still, what do you think about having a dock at all? And you also collect information about, but there's a certain number of people who will express an interest in a boat launch.
Right.
But you're not going to get anywhere farther if you just keep shutting down the conversation and saying, we don't want it, we don't want to talk about it. And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's really not what they think they're expressing, but it's what comes across. And I think also we need to put in that timeline of this tiny, tiny, tiny dot on the timeline that is the feasibility study, and it's an extremely long timeline. I don't think a lot of people realize that the next step is not construction.
Right.
A whole nother several, I don't know, 3 or 4 years or something. Just even if we got past this to get money for the pre-construction, the permitting, all the other people who could say no, like the Coast Guard can say no. But
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody, until we did all of this, I mean, none of us knew that, did we?
Right.
So we've learned this enormous amount, like you say, Dave, we need to put in context. We're going to use that information and continue this as long as we can, so that if in the end you just wrap up the book and say, okay, it's not feasible, you do not repeat the whole entire thing when something changes. And you might want to revive this idea. So I think we want to hear your concerns. We want to assure you, we didn't spend the last 2 years doing nothing.
Right, right. So far we haven't.
Yeah, I
responded.
totally agree with that. No,
So we need to craft some kind of response and an invite to a meeting. I don't know when you joined, Lane, but Mary was saying that a meeting with all of those property owners would be ideal. And we can walk through some of the considerations we've already given to their concerns, right?
Yeah, I think it also, again, setting the stage for what this process, even just for the feasibility study, what this process is. And that
Yeah.
when people say, well, it would be too big or intrusive and all the other answers is we don't know. We have not had anyone who could draw up engineering diagrams until now. And if you
Right.
see it and want to say no, then that makes sense. If you want to say no without having any of that data, that doesn't really make sense. And the state lawmaker, I mean, right? We had Senator Shoemake who came and said, or Representative Shoemake who said, feasibility study, that's my favorite, because that tells me that you really want to get some answers and that you're keeping an open mind while you do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that it would be great to have a conversation, set up a time for a conversation with those property owners that Ed said. And let's set up a meeting. Let's record it. Let's be sure that everybody has a chance to say why they're against it, what their concerns are, see which ones we can address, see which ones we can't address.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's the way I would look at it, because something that we couldn't say, yeah, well, yeah, we can, but we can use those list of concerns. We could submit those to the group that will be doing the engineering and see if there's ways to address those concerns in doing the engineering design.
And that was Rod's whole point, wasn't it? That you don't, Rod and Ted both, sort of what you find doesn't mean you stop. It means you have now got information to use for the next steps. And if the information is, enough of the community is not in favor, and again, this aspect, we need to make it clear to people that it's not just people who are not in favor who swing that vote, but it's people who don't get engaged. I mean, if you have some people who are very vocal about opposition, but you have other people who are active in helping to do things like the site assessment and work with a committee and help to, attend the meetings and gather data and really get involved, that's the community engagement that people are looking for. So we have to be careful to let people know a tick box is not enough to express, to demonstrate the community commitment to this. That will not be enough to move forward, even to the pre-construction stage. That any grant is going to, and I also think they need to realize any grant is going to involve, except for this one, any grant is going to involve some sort of matching funds.
Mhm.
Maybe you can
Yeah.
get that by getting another grant, but at some point, we'll have to realize, yeah, it takes more than just answering yes on a survey.
Yep.
So bottom line, long haul, we just got to keep moving forward, address these folks. So how do we want to move forward with inviting these folks, or do we want to just address Ed for right now? I mean, he in his letter is speaking for other people, but he doesn't say they have said. He suggests that, you know, there's a potential there that they're not going to support it. So to me, as I read it, it comes across just as Ed's opinion and his viewpoint. And we've engaged.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know of any of those folks on the list that we have not engaged. And like you, Mary, a lot of them were open to it and like the idea. So, you know,
Mhm.
is that something we just
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to engage? I mean, just a simple
And-
note to him?
Well, I think it would be good to do a simple note, but it would be good to maybe just call, you know, see if he wants to set up a meeting with his neighbor and members of the public doc committee, and let's have a listening session. And let's listen to what their concerns are. Anything that we already have an answer to, we can let them know that that is being addressed. Ed was real concerned about the presence of an Indian midden or something. In his first letter that he sent to us, he said that there's, you know, that there's this and this on that site, and so he probably doesn't know that we're doing cultural resources study. We now have the funding to do that. Thanks to him, we're thinking of that. You know, we can, you know, I can pull up, I'll have to pull up Ed's original letter. It's on the website. I think I've got my response to him is also on the website still. I'll have to look for that. But do we want to try set up a meeting with these folks in the next month?
I do think that's a good idea. And in particular, to review the concerns that we've heard and that are what we've tried to address, but also, again, to explain what this grant is and what it means if we continue moving forward. Clarify that we want to use these funds, you know, to learn as much as we can about feasibility, not, but so they understand that the way the grant evolved, it's site specific, but we are doing additional work on a volunteer basis to look at alternative sites. And it's not, you know, this does not mean there's going to be a dock built in their neighborhood in the next 2 years, right? Kind of thing. I mean, just to kind of clarify the whole scenario, I think is important. Because I don't think any of those folks would think that it'd be a good idea to just drop the grant and return the money, right? I mean, well, I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't want to do that. I think we need to, as Lane said, we need to carry this forward to see where it ultimately leads. Because most of us feel pretty strongly that we need to have a dock somewhere on Lemmy Island.
And I think that also, just to clarify, this is not a feasibility study to show why it could be built at the beach store site. This is a feasibility study to find out across the board. There are many, many constraints to consider. How many of those constraints can be either mediated or managed, or we can get an agreement for, et cetera. And are we going to find constraints that in the end make it, for now, for these reasons, not feasible? So this isn't just to prove that this site would work. I think that's the thing. When I hear feasibility study, I always assume it's across the board, but I think there are people who sort of have the narrower view of it and say, you're just wanting to prove, yes.
Mhm.
It's certainly not going to be yes on all the possible factors.
Right,
So we're
right.
going to try to
And
figure
a large
out
part,
on which factors is it a good match? Which factors is it not the best match? Or those factors it's not, is there something we can do about it? And
yeah, and they need to understand that a large part of this grant was, in fact, for community outreach, to hear
Yeah.
these concerns, right?
exactly.
And plan accordingly. So I think this would be, as Mary said, I think this would be a good initial public outreach with just this group
Yeah.
of neighbors. And then we open it up beyond that.
I do have one other suggestion to consider, and it's kind of in parallel. I would like us to consider doing an island-wide mailing, and I'm thinking of like in an envelope, an actual letter to everybody. I'm concerned about come the middle of September, a lot of people will kind of scatter. And I think we should reach out to everybody now while they're here and say, we don't want you to come back in May and find out that a lot of decisions were made while you were not here and were not actually staying in the loop. It is really important, if you are not around off season, that you get on the newsletter, that you pay attention to the tone, that you dial into the public meetings we'll have. Otherwise, you will not be engaged in the decision making. Because come the early summer, we will be well down the road of this feasibility study. So I wondered about, just while we have people on island, we go ahead and try to touch base with everybody to say, this is happening. You need to stay in the loop.
Okay.
That's
And
a good
are
idea,
we
Elaine, and-
talking about mailing to all property owners or just to all addresses?
How does the tone work?
The tone goes to all mailing addresses on the island. Many people own property, but they do not have an island mailing address.
How do we? What do you think is the difference here? What would you think was a better way to go?
I don't know. I defer to ideas from my fellow compatriots here. I know that my neighbor Paulette, she's had property here and has owned that property since the 1970, 74, 75, I think, and they bought their property. But she is the property owner, but her mailing address, she does not have an island mailing address. Her mailing address is her home in Bellingham. And I think that's
a question for Hope. However, what's the letter seeking, Lane? You're inviting them to engage more with us?
Well, yeah, I'm letting them know. I mean, we feel like we've done community outreach, but will that meet a standard of, say, RCO, a year from now saying, well, you had some meetings and you were at the market, but the only people you really addressed were the people who were wandering through the market. Did you actually sort of blanket the community? And I don't know if saying, well, Tome, goes to every household and that is how we keep people informed will be sufficient. And I mean, certainly we can continue to use that and say, if you own property here and you pay no attention to the Tome, you won't be in the discussion, and yet surely you won't be surprised by that because you must not be in any other discussions either.
Yeah. There are some people that are off island that, that are property owners that live off island and do subscribe to the Tome, but I guess it would probably be better to, I guess, get a mailing address of property owners on the island, because that would include the people that aren't on the island.
Is that something we have, Mary?
Yeah, can we get that?
Well, you can get that from the Whatcom County Assessor's Office. You could probably accumulate that there.
Maybe, okay, well, maybe we'll just rely right now because the Tome in my little world is the way we blanket the island. In the next article in the Tome, we're just really clear with people. Hey, if you're reading the Tome and you're on your way off island, please sign up for the newsletter because this feasibility study will be super active all the way through the next months where you may not be here. And then talk with, when we hire the public outreach engineering people, see how they do it. And if there's a, we have seen the value in the past of reaching out to every owner, then we'll go down that road. What do you guys think about that?
Because the time we get to, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, we can only do what we can do, right? We can broadcast this to as many addresses as we can get a hold of in the short term. We can post the letter on the LICA website, right? Because I found it interesting that the way, I guess it was Lane, what you described in the RFQs is that LICA is a community association of which every homeowner is a part of, right? And I realize that not everybody's going to be looking at the LICA website, but I don't think we want to burden ourselves with going through a detailed grinding search through the assessor's office to find every homeowner or landowner on Lummi. We need to get this letter drafted and get it distributed and, give the background of the grant, what it means, why we're doing it, the feasibility we just discussed. Doesn't mean that this site is the ultimate site of a dock, and just give the background, right? So there's some logistics there, but the letter needs to be drafted appropriately, and then we'll figure out how best to distribute it.
Okay, so I guess
That makes
that
sense?
Mary would be just to make sure we have. Oftentimes I'm trying to make the article sort of short and sweet, right? But it could be what we want to do is say, listen, we're going to take little extra room in the Tome. We're going to go ahead and make sure this is all clear to everybody, whether you're a neighbor, near neighbor, or an island neighbor, miles away from where the dock will be. All islanders should have a say and need to have input in the concept of building a public dock. And now we have this feasibility study. It is only the first of next steps, but a strong feasibility study is the only way we decide whether to even move forward or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the Tome is mailed to every address on the island. I think there's 743. I think that's about how many people it goes out to, or how many addresses it goes out to. And the tome hits renters, but it doesn't hit all property owners. So that's what I did on that. And I you're probably right putting it in an envelope and mailing it. That would be expensive. We could pro rate, so it would be about 100.
Right, and we
Well,
put
to
money in the
mail-
budget, at least two full mailing, I think. So we should have money for it. I was just I was thinking a little farther down the road, but I wanted to capture people while they're still around.
So
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
question, you guys.
And so,
Mary, I'm going to jump in there. Is this really necessary at this point to get this letter out?
Well,
Yes.
my point is that you'll have people leaving the island, Chris, and not showing up again until we are way down the road in this feasibility study.
Right, but what difference will this letter make at this point in the steps that we're taking now?
It's part of the making sure people understand ahead of time what the feasibility study will do, and kind of like I say, we can do it as a tome article. It'll hit just as many people.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a way to limit our work, and what is the practical benefit of trying to inform everybody when the information is available on the site already? And is this going to change anything of our process? Is this going to change our, seeking out these firms to do these studies? Is it going to change our
No,
daily?
it doesn't change anything, Chris.
Look at it,
It's just that we need to demonstrate throughout this whole process that we have done outreach, and they want us to quantify what and when and where and to whom did we do it. And that's also what I was thinking about.
Okay, so that practical benefit is it's long-term going to show that we are really seeking community involvement.
That's it.
Gotcha. Okay.
yes,
And that if there are people really who are not planning to pay any attention to the island until next May, I hope we'll get their attention to say, don't disappear, because the conversations are happening now.
So we're just continuing to try to get their involvement. I like it. Okay.
yeah, we can try first with tome article, Lane. And we could probably, I don't think it's going to be heavy tome in September, because the deadline for this tome has been moved up. It will be August 31st.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's what made me start thinking, okay, well, let's see if we can capture some prime real estate as a super important communication.
Yeah, no, I can make that happen. You have a little bit of say with the tone. The one thing that I would say is that the sooner we get it, the better real estate we'll get too. Like I have like has the second page of the tome. The first page is the calendar, and I have the President's Hall and Leica stuff. I just said I want Leica stuff to be primary on that second page. So I make sure that especially if you get it in early, if we get it in, you get it in, it will appear.
Okay.
I will tell Chris and Bill to put on that second page, include it with my stuff.
Okay, because what we could also do is include links to things like that I sent you guys that one page, all the different sites we were considering. Make that public information, you know, engage people in saying, if you have any input on any of these, you want to contact the site assessment committee, because we're moving forward, you know, subcommittee, we're moving forward with this. And any of the other documents we feel like, you know, and sharing that we are doing our request for qualifications. Here's where to be looking for that information. If you know anyone here's who we're hiring. And we'll be doing that process. And yeah, setting the context for where does a feasibility study fit in the long timeline of actually building a dock. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think those are all good things to address. On the alternative sites, I think we need to be careful on those because some of those alternative sites are on suggested alternative sites are on private property. And I don't think until we have a conversation with the property owners in that alternative site study, I don't would be listing sites. Does that make sense?
Well, we've already made public all of these discussions, though. These are all in presentations we've made to people. We can look through it and just make sure it's as generic as possible. Like I said, if you say along, you know, between the island and, the ferry and Lego Bay, and just say because we've already put that information all out there, Mary.
Okay.
But we'll read through it and look.
But we haven't, but we have not really engaged property owners. We've looked at them, but we haven't really engaged the property owners at that site, you know, because we don't know if that site is, you know, automatically those sites like across like Granger Beach or any of those other sites, we have not engaged those property owners and even talked to them. And I think that should be a first step, like looking at a site saying, okay, this might work, but before we go super public with it, I think the next step would be to let's have a conversation with these people and to see how feasible this is.
Okay.
And if, does that make sense to the rest of you?
Yes, it does.
Dave?
Yeah.
Because the only ones, and that's one of the things, we haven't had a talk with the guy at the Village Point Marina. You know, he's got his property up for sale. We could possibly buy that. You know, if it's a lot of money, but you know, if that was something that he's amenable to selling, and if it's possible to build a site there, but I think the huge thing with that site is it's super exposed.
Well, the site analysis that we did is on put a link to that paper or to that sheet with all of them on there. You know, we have engaged the Grangers. I've talked to Mark Schintaffer. I've talked to the Dickinsons about their land. So 3 of the other sites, at least, I've talked to them all. And
okay,
you know, Granger's not selling because that's family-owned property. They didn't like the idea. Dickinsons, of course, would want to sell land, so they're open to it. The price is right, and Mark Schintaffer is open to selling his property as well at the price that he's got it set at. So yeah, I've got those down already. What other sites? Who else would we need to contact? I think Dave and the Harmonies, Dave and Molly. We talked to them too, just about the potential. And if I remember right, they weren't too excited about anything on their property. So
Okay.
I don't know who else we would need to address on that. Lane, we brought up the Sunset Beach ownership, multiplicity of people, right? Your mic's off.
I kind of, again, generified the between Sunset Cove and Salvation Army.
Okay.
So,
Sunrise Cove.
of course, I always want to call it I don't know why I always want to call it Sunset. It is in the east. Yeah, Sunrise Cove. Well, you guys think about that. I'm open to suggestion. I think the other thing is just get on the committee. If you want to know what the sites are, get on the subcommittee that's looking at it. We need help. So, and I think it's getting late. We're getting a moving truck tomorrow, so I know I need to wrap up this night tonight. The only other thing was, Chris, whether you need anything else specifically with a site assessment.
No, I'm just going to start breaking it down into the sites that we have on that list so far. And if anybody has suggestions for sites other than that, let me know and I'll make up a sheet for one of those too.
And I got you the names, and I talked to Serena, and I got the contact information for David. It's David Jennings. That's his act, and I have his phone number.
Okay.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, Jennings or Jenkins, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, and I think we should meet again. The whole committee should meet again. I think probably within the next week, because we still have other things we need to work through.
Okay.
Do people do that?
Okay. Well, we set a date now.
Yeah.
I'm available Friday night if we now and then, or Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. It's all good for me.
Okay. Friday night could work for me.
I don't know about Friday for me, but Sunday or Monday is probably good. I know I'll have access then.
Yeah, Sunday would be better for me. Friday night we'll have be taking the truck back and everything, so it'll be a pretty hectic.
Sunday night, Mary?
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work.
Sunday night.
Sunday night would be great.
Okay. Okay.
Shoot for the same time?
Sure.
Could we go a little earlier?
Yeah, earlier is better.
Yeah, whatever. Works for me.
Maybe like around, would 5 work or 4 or 5 work?
5.
Yeah, 5 is good.
5's good.
5's good.
5 it is.
Awesome.
Got
Okay. Why don't we do 5 o'clock on Sunday?
Okay.
And I'll draft up some things for thoughts on a Tome article. Think of it as a letter in your mailbox. And we will keep you posted about at this stage. We're waiting. Our grant manager should be back from vacation tomorrow, so I'm hoping we'll make progress and actually get in the contract. But I'll be pretty much tied up tomorrow and Thursday with into Friday with moving. So you'll probably hear from me on Saturday, and hopefully someone might be able to make it to the market or take a week off. We have
Yeah,
lovely.
I will be on Saturday, and so I will main public dock.
You will be able to do
And-
public doc? Okay, great. I will bring the boards.
I'll do public dock with either of you guys available on Saturday to sit in a public dock booth.
I am not on island.
Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm available. I'll make time.
Okay. Okay, Chris, that could be great.
What
Why don't you, like, I can get the booth set up and stuff like that. So maybe about 9:30 to 1.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Yep. I'll make it happen.
Okay, thank you. Because Lane deserves a weekend off. She had it all by herself at RENet. So,
Yeah, we've got a van on Saturday, so we'll still be moving. We're moving the smaller stuff. We got a truck on Thursday, Friday for the bigger stuff, and a van on over the weekend. But but
okay.
I'll be able to come out
Yeah.
over Saturday morning and drop off the boards.
Okay. Yeah, I have, the only thing that could possibly go wrong for me on Saturday, would be, my boat has an offer on it. My sailboat does, and it may be, I may have to go out on a test sail that day. So, a sea trial is what it's called. And so I may have to go out on the boat with the new owner. And so anyway.
No worries. I can handle it myself if I need to.
Okay, that's what I want to know, Chris, if you could.
Yeah.
Is that is something that may be zapping me.
No problem.
I just won't know because the survey is Friday. And if all goes well with that, the guy that's buying it is from Portland, and he may want to do the sea trial the following day. So I won't know until Friday. This is like kind of really a tough thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I will
Good luck
be in
with it, Mary.
contact with you, Chris. And yeah, I've been shedding a lot of tears. It's really hurting my soul. So to do
I
this,
know, I
but
know.
we
Yep.
really need to do.
Other day.
So anyway, yep. And so anyway, and Lane, I have one real quick question. So can you stay on after everyone leaves? I just need to talk about from Saturday.
Yeah.
So everybody else can go, I guess. I just have to do a real quick question. I'll turn off recording.
There you go.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Is there
See you Sunday.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Chris. Take care.
Bye, Chris. Bye, guys.
All right. Good night.